So this drive was around about 10, maybe even 15 miles an hour slower than my normal drives. Therefore, it went significantly shorter and it sliced way out to the right. Now, the reason that happened is because I made 2 faults in my grip. Now, I think many of you are making these faults, however, they're probably not intentional. And that's my job in this video, is to show you what these are. I'm going to show you what I did, which robbed me of that distance, which means that if we tweak them and change them, you can gain that distance back. Now, one of these faults also caused that ball to slice. So what is that first fault? Well, this is my lead hand, this is my glove hand. Where you position the grip in your hand is absolutely vital. I cannot stress this enough. If we think of the fingers, okay, this is the base of my fingers. Now, my golf club needs to sit very much in the base of the fingers, as you can see here. It's not directly kind of parallel with them here, it's at a slight angle, but it goes from the sort of knuckle of my index finger to the base of my little finger. What that means is that when I place my fingers around the golf club, it's held very much in the fingers. Now, what I did on that particular shot, which caused my club speed to be significantly lower, and I reckon that's cost me a good 7 to 8 mile an hour club speed, is I very, very simply held the grip much more through the palm. So you can see it's not at a completely different angle, but it's much more through the palm. Therefore, when I place my hand around it, it feels far less in the fingers and it feels far more in the palm of the hand. Now, the difficult part here is that for many golfers, that's instinctively just the way that we grab it. You know, we pick up a golf club and we just grab it more through the palm. Let me show you why that's an issue. If I place my grip correctly in my hand, so where we've kind of shown you, if you look at my lead arm and I hold it in position, because the way that I've placed placed the club in my hand, I can get the club shaft up to horizontal, okay, just using my wrist. Now this, in the golf swing, is a huge source of power, massive. That's where almost most of your power comes from. You might know that as kind of wrist set or wrist hinge or wrist cock, whatever term you want to use, but that effectively is my power. Now watch what happens when I place it higher in the hand, as I did on that particular drive. When I move the club up, nowhere near as much range of motion. So I don't have as much kind of leverage in that wrist. So what do we find that tends to happen in the golf swing is we kind of feel that. We sense that we don't really have the power in the wrist. So how do I then get the golf club sort of more up to horizontal? Potentially you'll bend your arm. So if you're someone who's looked at your golf swing, you've seen your lead arm bend excessively in the backswing, which gets you really narrow. Sometimes you're trying to keep the arm straight, but it's actually the grip where you kind of really need to put the focus. So number one, it makes you kind of bend the lead arm. And then number two, and this is the kind of real point here, if I sort of face the camera, watch the club face as I do this. This is my correct grip. Club goes up to horizontal, leading edge of the club is vertical, as it was at the start. So I'm able to create that leverage and keep the club face pointing in the same place. Now, as soon as I go higher in my hand, what we've said is that suddenly I can't get that leverage. So I might bend my lead arm, or I might do this. Now watch this carefully. As I start to use my wrist in a completely different way, I can get it up to horizontal. Look at that club face. It's no longer vertical. It is twisted to the right, which in a golf swing is way, way open. So I had to do something really different with my wrist in order to create some power. So on that first shot, think of how crazy this is. I moved that grip probably an inch higher in my hand. It lost me power, and it meant that I had to twist the face way open to try and recover some of that power. So I basically get the choice of, do I lose 50 yards? Don't really want to do that. Do I get some power back? But I'm going to slice it 50 yards into the trees. Neither is a great option, and you'll probably lose direction and power. So let's hit a drive, and we can see if we can increase that club speed. You can see that one was just fractionally under 100. So we're going to see if we can hit a drive and increase that speed just by getting that golf club more through the base of the fingers. My little test is, can I hold the forearm, get the club shaft up to horizontal, which I can, and keep the grooves vertical. That's a key message there as well. So we were just under 100 on that one. Let's see if that little grip change can get me over 100. It was definitely a better drive, it was straighter, and we're over 100. So that was about 5 to 6 miles an hour faster. Now, trust me, I know you are not here, but that first drive I hit, I was trying to hit that pretty hard, but I couldn't get the speed because of the way the club was placed in my hand. What is the second thing that we're going to come on to? Well, this one is a little bit kind of hidden. So it's a little bit harder to see, but I would almost guarantee that you're going to be struggling with this. And it's to do with kind of grip pressure, so how hard we kind of squeeze the golf club and what that does to the rest of your body. I want you to think about grip pressure being your fingers, and I also want you to think about how that relates to your wrists. I am going to take a setup here, and I'm going to grip with my fingers as hard as I possibly can. So I'm really squeezing these 3 fingers and almost trying to pull the grip into the palm of my hand as hard as I can, okay? But watch what happens if I start to turn my chest back and through. Notice how there's a lagging of the club head and a flowing of the club head. Why is that happening? Because my wrists are loose. My fingers are holding tightly, but my wrists are loose. That is so important that we distinguish between the two. So many golfers will have too much pressure through the fingers and it locks the wrists. So when I get golfers to do that little exercise, it looks very, very stiff like this. We don't get any flow, we don't get any rhythm. Now, at setup, I don't want you to grip it tightly with the fingers. However, if that club is traveling at 100, 105, 110 miles an hour, at impact, you kind of better be holding on pretty tight, because if you're not holding tight, the club is going to go flying down the range. So we know that at impact, you are applying more pressure to the grip through the fingers than you would have been at setup. What we need to guard against is that increasing grip pressure through the swing doesn't lock your wrists. Here's a little test. If you've got any videos of you hitting driver at all, have a look at where the golf club is at the end of your golf swing. I would like it to be on or near your neck or your shoulders. Doesn't necessarily need to finish there, but at some point, it needs to be there. What you might see is something that looks a little bit more like this. Very, very different. If your club is away from your shoulders, the club shaft is pointing up towards the sky, probably tells me, and it will tell you, that your wrists are too locked. Trust me, that is robbing you of valuable distance that will cause you to be closer to the green, have shorter irons in, all that kind of stuff. So the little exercise I want you to do is the one we just went through. Take a setup and start to move the body and feel how the club head flows behind. This is my wrists being fluid. Now I can actually increase my grip pressure as I do that, but I'm keeping my wrists fluid. So as I'm doing this, I'm trying to squeeze harder with my fingers, but it's not affecting my wrists. That's so key. And try that little exercise. Start with the fingers light. You'll find it quite easy to get that flow. But as you start to increase that pressure, see if you can maintain the flow in the wrists. And if you can take that to a golf swing, keep your wrists nice and fluid, and actually focus on getting the club to finish on your shoulder, you'll swing it faster. And it's faster through no more effort, which is great. In fact, kind of locking the wrists down and putting the club up here actually feels like it's more of an effort. You have to work hard to hit the shot. So this should actually make the golf swing feel more effortless.